Hi, welcome back to our studio practice. Today, I would like to walk you through a basic method for mapping a digital image onto a 3D model surface. This exercise will be involving the flow for setting up a basic color shader and its applications by using a planar projections and the use of a UV textures editor as well. For the demonstration purpose, we shall try to replicate the creations of paper models like Dormo-kun and Mr. Hellboy in 3D. And let's start with Dormo-kun first for this training sessions. First, do open up the provided base mesh file for our practice. In the scene, you will be able to see the simple boxy model of Dormo-kun. And we shall begin our texture mapping exercise by giving Dormo-kun a face. Beforehand, go to Window, look for Rendering Editors, choose Hypershade, and a Hypershade window would pop up. As you can see, all 3D meshes shading is controlled by the default Lambert 1 shader. With the Lambert shader is being selected in the Hypershade window, let's click on the Attribute Editor which is situated on the right of the interface. Here, you could get to see all the controllable properties that the shader can offer. For instance, let's drag on the color slider, and you would see the mesh changes color. You could even click the color sample and change the color in accordance to HSV value or a RGB palette of your choice. To exit, simply mouse out from the color picking interface. And let's press Ctrl Z to undo our previous actions for reverting back to its original color setting. In a general practice, we will not alter or make changes to the Lambert 1 shader, as it is a default shading mode of Maya. We should create a new shader to accommodate any shading and texturing related task. Let's click on the Lambert button to create a totally new Lambert shader. And let's select all meshes of Dormo-kun now. In the Hypershade window, let's click and hold on to our right mouse button. Choose Assign Material to Selections. Now, Dormo-kun's shading shall be governed by this new shader. Return to the Hypershade window now. Select the freshly created Lambert 2 shader. Go to the Attribute Editor, and let's rename the shader to Dormo-kun shader. Once done, click on this little checker button which next to the color channel. A render node window here. Choose File in Attribute Editor. Click on the photo icon and navigate to the provided Dormo-kun textures. Click on this forward button for returning to our shader's main interface. You shall see the textures is well integrated. To display the texture from our viewport, do click on this Show Texture icon, and you will see the mapping of a newly loaded texture. Everything will look badly displayed as we have not performed the mapping projections yet. To work on the mapping projections, we will need to customize our viewport. Go to Panel, look for Layouts, choose 2 panes side by side, and you will see our viewport being split into 2. Let's change one of the viewport to the UV Textures editor. Try to click on Dormo-kun's main body, and the related texture will show up in the UV Textures editor. You can toggle the Textures editor's grid via the View menu. You will also be able to see the grid is operated on Cartesian coordinates. For this simple exercise, let's turn off the grid for now, so that we could focus on working out Dormo-kun's mapping. Let's zoom closer to Dormo-kun's body mesh, go to the face mode, and select this face. And you can see the selected 3D face would be also highlighted in the UV editor as well. Now we would like this face mesh to be projected with Dormo-kun's face. Beforehand, let's maximize our viewport's screen space a little bit more by switching our Attribute Editor to Channel Box. Okay, let's reselect this face again. Do make sure you are in a polygon mode now. Go to Create UVs, choose Planar Mapping. You will see the appearance of the projection handle. In the channel box, let's set the rotation Y to 0 degree. Then change the projection width to 5. And return to our perspective viewport now. Try to click and drag on the projection handler's corner. This will change the sizings of our projections. You could reposition the projection area in the texture editor by clicking on the Move handle. And you can resize the projections as many times as you need. Now let's try to move our projection to fit Domo-kun's face. When you are done, let's try to work out the back of Domo-kun. Select the face, go to Create UVs, choose Planar Mapping. Reset the rotation Y to 0 degree. Set the projection width to 5 and repeat the scaling actions again. In the process of texture mapping, you have to be mindful about the possibility of a flip projection like this one, where the text is not correctly displayed. In such occasions, go to UV Textures Editors, the Polygon menu, choose the flip functions. This shall help to correct our projections. Next, let's try to move on to the top of his head and repeat the planar projection actions. This time, let's set the rotation X to 90 degree and try to set the projection width to 3. Click on the projection handle again, resize and move it to this portion of the texture map. Again, repeat the following steps to work out its size. And now we shall rework on the bottom face. Beside the use of our radius projection mappings, we could use the direct manipulative approach in fixing projections. For instance, to map these bottom portions, go to the UV Textures Editor, do right mouse button click, choose UV, drag to select the four corners of the face, and you would see the 4 little green dots appear. Click on the Move tool and move it along the Y-axis accordingly, and try to match the texture. You could use the Scale tool as well for resizing the projection area. Repeat the same direct manipulation approach for fixing the remaining sideways projections. Okay, everything looks good so far. Now let's work on Domo-kun's arm. Select the front and back facing of the arm measures. In the mapping projections, we can project multiple faces in one go, as long as they share the same textures and the direction of the projections. Let's map it to this portion of the textures. We set the rotation to 0 degree and change both of the projection width and height to the same input for maintaining the same aspect ratios. Now let's try to match our projection to the textures. We can also rotate our projection via 2D means. Click on this curve of the projection handle and you shall have your rotations. Everything looks okay and in place. Now click on the selection tool to exit the projection mode. And let's remap the bottom face of the arm with the direct manipulation way. Try to map it to the mouth texture. And do feel free to use the scale tool whenever it's necessary. Next, we shall work on the side face of the arm. Select the face and apply the planar mapping. By default, the project angle is always about a 90-degree straight facing. By default, the projection angle is always straight facing and about 90 degrees. But for this scenario, we need to alter the projection angle to match the mesh facing angle for minimizing unnecessary camera-based distortions. And as usual, let's repeat the scaling and moving actions. Again, let's repeat the same process for the top part of the arm. Sometimes you could click on this clockwise rotations button for rotating the projection angle too. Now the left arm is done. You can choose to repeat the same mapping process to the right arm. Or we could simply use the trick of duplications, as long as the mesh shares the same texture. Okay, we are almost come to an end of these demonstrations. Do try to repeat the steps for completing the remaining portion of the model and get yourself familiarized with the planar mapping method. You will need to get used with all the tools before we can proceed to a more advanced workflow. And do try to practice the planar mapping method on the Hellboy model as well. Thank you.